Armada Book 2 Chapter 12 The Datuins Part 1. April 2060. We are being hailed Bhaskar. Show them some charm Scamanak. Scamanak talked with the intercepting Talonot ships and told them they would like to see the king. That they have a lot of very important information to deliver. After some time, the ship commander told them to follow the ship to a landing pad below. Bhaskar guided his 10 ships to the planet below and hover in the area. Andrew and GX-1, Gantley, Tonin, Resban, and Ellie beamed into Bhaskar's ships and got into the transport vehicle. They were all using the chameleon device and appeared as Marantais. There were 4 transport vehicles that got down to the palace grounds. Upon their arrival, several dozen Talonot warriors surrounded the ships and some formed a line towards the palace building. The Talonot warriors were wearing a silvery uniform that appeared metallic because it is solid-shaped in some areas like the shoulders but soft along the sides. The uniforms had red and black markings in front and on the arms which may show their rank or group assignments. They were all carrying short weapons that they hold with both hands supported by a sling around their shoulders. Some warriors were wearing silver helmets with red and black markings. Bhaskar and the group got off the transport ships and formed a 2-line group. Then the escorts told them to follow them. Andrew thought that maybe these are royal security forces because of their nice uniforms. Scamanak and Bhaskar talked with the warriors as they marched towards the palace. The palace grounds look simple, not overly designed. The palace itself looks like a simple square building with high ceiling, a lot of supporting posts and large windows. When they entered through a rather small door, the room was huge with a lot of Talonots working on various tables. There were countless round screens made of opaque glass showing various scenes, books and what appears to be paper strewn all around. This is probably their war room. Andrew whispered to Ellie. The Talonots suddenly became quiet. Then a uniformed Talonot walked in front of the group. My name is Sarudam, the first right to King Manpat, please follow me. The group followed him into a smaller room at the far right of the hall. At the end of the room was a table and the Talonot at the other side of the table stood up and went around to meet them. Sarudam announced, this is King Manpat. Your Highness the visitors. Bhaskar made a low bow and the group followed. Scamanak introduced himself as a Talonot from the planet Typont Nina which was taken over by the Datuins. He told the king he was saved from a large moon by Bhaskar. He then proceeded to introduce Bhaskar, Andrew, Gantley, Tonin and the rest. We are honored to meet the king of our ancestors. Bhaskar exclaimed. Ancestors? Manpat asked. Bhaskar continued, yes King Manpat, when we first encountered Scamanak, we thought he was a regular Marinti like me but when I could not understand his language we ran an analysis of his body and we found out that he comes from a different and much older lineage of our species. We are your descendants and our galaxies are more than 3 BLY from here. Manpat looked amazed, that is incredibly far. Your ships must travel very fast. It took us many months to travel to this galaxy. Bhaskar said in a low tone. I am at a loss on how to welcome you. On the one hand we are happy to meet our descendants from far away but we are saddened because we are at war and it is not going good for us. Manpat said. We came to help. We have 10 ships. Bhaskar said. Manpat laughed and, I have 18,000 ships. Our enemy has more than 100,000 ships maybe more. We are building 1,500 ships a month in all our planets. In fact, we have started to send expeditionary groups of 100 ships in each group to faraway galaxies so that our kind will survive. How many warriors do you have? Andrew asked. We have more than 150 million warriors. Sarudam answered. The Datuins have more than 200 million Talonots and more than 100,000 ships. Gantley said. Yes, 2 of those are my 2 sons. Manpat interjected. They also have 20 million real Datuin warriors and around 20,000 ships. Gantley added. Yes, but they are not as brave as our warriors. They are in it for the money. Sarudam said. Have you found a way to separate the creatures from the Talonot hosts? Ellie asked. We have not been successful. Although we now have a way to exterminate the slimy parasites. Sarudam said bowing his head. How? Tonin asked. Sarudam explained, we have synthesized their blood and created a poison. In an open ground battle last year, we deployed the poison in the air and this killed all the parasites. The poison does not affect Talonots but are deadly to the pests. But then if the parasite dies, then? And the Talonot hosts were killed as well? Andrew asked. Yes, to us they are already dead. Manpat said. How do you intend to win against the Datuins? Bhaskar asked. Manpat answered, as long as they do not attack all at once we can meet them head-on in battle. Our ships can take down 3, maybe even 5, of their ships in open engagement. They cannot win on the ground. Their slave warriors do not think like normal Talonauts, they are too slow and do only what they are programmed to do. Sarudam said. How about the slaves in the occupied planets? How do you intend to free them? Bhaskar asked. Manpat looked at Sarudam. We have tried to infiltrate their line of ships but were unsuccessful. Do you know how the creatures are being controlled? Ellie asked. Sarudam explained, all of them are pre-programmed to do certain main things like fly ships and attack ships, some are programmed to work in factories and work machines. Almost all are programmed to do regular daily maintenance activities. Once released, they are almost autonomous. Sometimes we see them being reprogrammed using certain equipments. Where are these equipments? Tonin asked quickly. In the old capital planet of Manpatnina. We have tried to infiltrate the planet to get hold of these equipment and it cost us more than 1,000,000 lives. Obviously we did not succeed. Sarudam said. How do you intend to help us? Manpat asked. We will turn over all their Talonot slaves and hosts, their 100,000 ships and 20,000 Datuin ships to you. We will get the parasites off the host alive. We will get the programming equipment so you can program the Talonauts taken over by the creatures if needed. It may take us a while to do this. Andrew said. If you can do that in a year or even 2 years, that would be a miracle. How long a while would you need? Manpat asked. Andrew looked at Tonin and Gantley. I think we can do it in a week, but we may get delayed so maybe 2 weeks. Tonin answered. We also have to deal with the 30 or so planets at the same time. The problem is that the Talonauts that have creatures attached to them may be killed. Andrew added. Manpat and Sarudam were taken aback. That would be nice but very improbable. Apparently you have not experienced a war like the one we have been through for the last 100 years. As far as the Talonauts with creatures on them, they are already dead. Manpat said. Can we have a small sample of your poison, please? Ellie asked. Manpat nodded at one of the Talonauts around them. Then we have to deal with the Datuins. Why are you at war in the first place? Andrew asked. To the monsters, they are waging an economic war. They believe that when you enslave a population, take over their planet, and attach a parasite to make them your slave, that you are gaining workers and warriors. The Datuins see everything as a way of making them rich. To us this is a war for survival, a war of conquest. To our enemies, it's a commercial venture. Manpat said. That's not good. Ellie commented. Manpat continued, the Datuins is led by a wealth-crazed emperor. The planets are run by his commanders. All the wealth, he actually shares with his people and his people are okay with the slavery since they benefit from it and they also see it as a commercial enterprise. They do not feel the suffering. My pain to lose 2 sons, Sarudam's anguish in losing his family. My people have lost a lot in terms of families. Some of whom we killed ourselves. The solution is to remove the emperor and his family and his commanders and their families. Sarudam said. Manpat's staff gave him a large bottle of the poison. Manpat gave it to Ellie and said, this is harmless to us but deadly to the creatures. If we deliver the emperor and their leaders to you, what will you do with them? Andrew asked. Sarudam asked Bhaskar, what would you do? Bhaskar answered, execute them in front of our people. Exactly. Manpat exclaimed. Tonin looked at Gantley and Andrew, we will deliver them to you as well in 1 or 2 weeks. Tonin said. I guess you are free to dream. I will let you be on your way. Tell Sarudam whatever it is you need and he will help you. Manpat said. We have what we need. Thank you. Andrew said. Bhaskar turned and, can we leave a ship here and a scientific contingent so we can communicate with you? For the moment we would leave your planet and make our plans. Sarudam, do you want to go with our friends? Bhaskar, Sarudam is my childhood friend and most trusted advisor. He can make things happen for you. Manpat said. Andrew nodded, we will come back for him. Right now we will leave and make our plans. As they were leaving an old Talonot came running in and stood in front of Andrew's group. Oh, Andrew, this is our wise elder Samultaman. He has always told us that Talonots from the stars will come to us and free our people. Sarudam said. Samultaman came closer to Andrew and to Ellie. These two are the same species. Then he went in front of Gantley then Tonin, these two are from 2 different species which is different from those 2 and different from him, pointing to Bhaskar. We don't understand what he is talking about. Andrew said. I know you do but I will not press it. You came here to help our people and I will welcome you into my home. Sarudam, treat these people well, be courteous to them and give them all they need. Yes sir, I will. When they got back inside the transport ship, Ellie told Olive to beam the poison to the Norset lab in her ship so they can study it and even make more of it. In an hour they were back in Andrew's ship. They gathered in the large mission room, a room that they rarely use. Tonin, since you started with the tagging, you get to abduct the Emperor and the planet leadership. Use all possible taggers from all the ships. Andrew said. Yes, Andrew. Tonin answered, then told Resban to tell the commanders to make sure all possible taggers are deployed. When you get them, freeze them in time so we can store them before giving them to Manpat. Who gets to get the octopus controller equipment? Andrew asked. I do that. I believe Resban had some information on their location. Gantley said. Good, we need to study them and adopt them to our needs. Andrew said. I was looking at the schematics and I actually went inside one of the captured Datuin ships, and if we deliver a small bomb inside the engine's mechanical drives, it will blow up the engine and render the ships useless. The ships would serve as their holding area until we find a way to save the zombies. Roger said. How large a bomb? Ellie asked. One regular block of C4. It will obliterate the engine but will not destroy the ship. Roger said. What about life support and backup engine power? Ellie asked. The ships do not have backup power. They were designed to engage in a suicide encounter. The life support is minimal or just enough to keep the crew alive until their next programmed mission. Roger said. So they could die due to lack of life support? Eric asked. Can we beam the entire ship to the ground? Linda asked. I think we have a mining TP that does that. Olive, how many ships have this kind of TP? Tonin asked. 615 ships. 200 of Andrew's ships, 200 of your ships, and 215 are Gantley's. So it's doable. After we disable the ships we beam them to the ground. How long will it take to beam down 100,000 ships, Olive? Gantley asked. Anywhere between 7 hours to 8 hours depending on the targeting speed. How about their weapons? Even if we beam them to the ground they could still fire at their targets, who would then be ships around with zombies in them. Roger said. If we beam them to an unoccupied planet, they are essentially stuck there with no enemy to target except their own. I don't think they are programmed to shoot at their ships. Olive, look for a planet we can use to dump the zombies and their ships in. Andrew said. Just in case, can we beam a similar charge then blow the weapons? Tonin asked. If we study the ship Resban got earlier, we can find out their targeting system and disable it by beaming a charge to blow it up. Roger said. I will tell my team to study their targeting system and see how we can disable it. It would have been much easier if we had robots to do the tagging to separate the zombies from their ships. We were supposed to build robots that were better than the triggers, but at that time we could not imagine any need for them. Ellie said. Next time we build them and deploy in all our ships. Tonin noted. I have a question. If the gas in the ships are toxic to our taggers, how come the zombies are not affected? Andrew asked. I believe the zombies are immune to them because of their condition. Maybe the protein in their system protects them. Like Manpat's poison, they will kill the octopus, but once they are integrated with the Talonauts after 30 days, the poison cannot kill them. We could get a ship and study it, and maybe we can develop an antidote for the toxic gas. Ellie said. But it might take too long. Bhaskar, can you ask our scientists down on the planet to look at this? Maybe Manpat has the answer, they just don't know about it. It could be that Talonauts are all immune to it. Andrew said. Scamanak, would you like to volunteer? Bhaskar asked. The people laughed. Bhaskar continued, it's worth a try. Come on Scamanak, we beam you in, but if we see your system react terribly to the gas we will immediately beam you out. I would agree to try. Scamanak said finally. There is a safer way to test it on Talanaut physiology. We do what Roger proposes, which is to beam a bomb in their engine drive, then we beam it near the planet below using our mining TP, also to test the TP action, then we beam in a container and beam it out. We cannot beam the ship near us because it may be booby-trapped. We may have to kill all the occupants of the test ships first before we even blow up the engine drives. Ellie said. I see your point, Ellie. Roger, get us one ship. Kill the occupants before you blow the engine drives to test your bomb and beam the ship to the planet below. Andrew said. There is also the living slaves in the occupied planets. If we abduct their leaders, they could be in danger. As Resban said, not all the slaves can be tagged. They might be in danger once things start to happen. Eric said. I don't think that the zombies are programmed to kill in the event that the leaders are abducted. Tonin said. There is always that risk. But I agree with you, Tonin, the zombies are not that smart to react to the abduction. Andrew said. Billy has taken hold of the moon and they are now studying the zombies. Olive reported. That's good to know. Gantley answered. Andrew looked at Gantley and turned. Okay people, let's make this happen. Let's all meet again after 24 hours. They all left for their ships and went to work. The next day, Andrew, Ellie, Bhaskar and Scamanak went down to meet with Sarudam. Sarudam was in the room adjacent to the king's office. Manpat was also there talking to the warrior leaders. Welcome back Bhaskar, Andrew. Ellie and Skamanak, did I say your name correctly? Sarudam asked. Yes you did. Ellie answered. So how may we help you? Manpat asked. Your Highness, have you ever tried to separate the creatures from the host Talonauts? Andrew asked. Yes, and both died. When we used several test gases to kill the pest, it did not die because the host protected it. We have not found a way in all these 90 or so years since we began to study this. Can we have your research data so we can look at them also? Bhaskar asked. Manpat waved a Talonot who seemed to be a lead scientist. He told him to get all the data on the subject and give it to Andrew. It's hopeless. The host Talonauts are gone from us. Manpat sighed. We would like to be fools to hope for a solution. Andrew said. I hope you would be successful even if I know it is impossible. Sarudam said. The Datuin ships contain a toxic gas but it is not toxic to the creatures and the Talonauts they are attached to. How can this happen? Do you have an antidote against this toxic gas? Ellie asked. Your scientists asked that of us earlier. I told them we do not know there is a toxic gas in the ships. We have not captured any ship. How did you know there is a toxic gas? Do you have a sample? Sarudam asked. I can give you some in a few days. We would still have to get some. Ellie said. We also noticed the enemy ships were created to run suicide missions. Like disposable warriors and ships. Bhaskar noted. That is correct. The monsters do not care about those in the ships. So when they send them to battle, none ever returns. That is why we suffer badly because they simply go in and crash their ships into ours. It's a numbers game to them. To us it's living family members in harm's way. Manpat said. Have you ever thought there could be a spy within your circle? Andrew asked. Manpat looked at Andrew. No, that would not be possible. Manpat said softly. Manpat continued, all of us here do not even go home. I am tired of Sarudam's face. He never leaves me alone. If you mean the royal family or our leaders, it would still not be possible because we all lost a lot. There is common hatred among us against our enemies. In the occupied planets, some Talonauts do not have the creatures attached to them. Why is this? Ellie asked. In about 5 planets we were able to spray the poison but not on all the planets. If we spray the poison, all the creatures will die except for those already attached to a Talonot. As the king said, the host Talonot seemed to manage to keep them alive. Sarudam said. What is preventing the Datuins in converting all the Talonot slaves with the creatures? Andrew asked. The Talonauts without the creatures attached to them are smart and can work better. Those with creatures attached to them do not think well, they cannot analyze a situation. They can follow their programming but not anything else. If they are programmed to build or repair ships, that is what they do, nothing more. The unattached Talonauts do those jobs that require thinking and decision-making. Manpat explained. When do you think the Datuins will attack? Andrew asked. They will attack in a few months. They are building ships. We are building defenses against their ships. They cannot put their troops on the ground because we will overwhelm them. I believe their primary objective is to take out all our ships and shipbuilding capabilities. Then they will bombard us from orbit. It will now be a slow, very slow process for them but they will still win. They simply have the numbers. Manpat said. I have 10 ships and I think that would be enough. Bhaskar said. I like you Bhaskar. You are so optimistic and raring to go, funny in your desire to fight. Sarudam said. Manpat gave a cube to Andrew. Here Andrew, this device contains our research on the creatures and the Talonauts they attach themselves to. You need a portable reader so you can read the files inside that device. He waved the same Talonot and the Talonot brought a device with an oblong screen and gave it to Bhaskar to carry. Ellie got the device and asked the Talonot to show her. They moved over to a table and Ellie got to work. What prompted the Datuins to invade your planets in the first place? Andrew asked. As I said, it is a commercial venture to them. I think that they realized we were getting more advanced than they were and that the number of our planets are growing and they were not. I also think they are running out of good labor to build their cities and industries. So there are slaves Talonauts in Datuin planets? Andrew asked. Yes, several millions in every planet. In all their planets. Sarudam answered. What item or things do they give most value to? Andrew asked. This. Manpat said as he showed them an oval-cut diamond. This small stone can buy thousands of slaves. But we cannot possibly buy all the slaves. And we do not have this stone. This is very rare. But that's just a rock. What do they do with it? Andrew asked. It's really a symbol of wealth and power. Manpat said. How about their children? Do they value them? Andrew asked. I guess they do, but these are very selfish monsters who lack the empathy with their neighbors. Maybe or maybe not all of them value their kids. Manpat said. If we get the Talonauts held in the Datuin planets, do you have transport ships to get them home? Andrew asked. Sarudam quipped, I don't know how you can even think this is possible. But we have over 6,000 transport ships and each ship can carry at least 500 Talonauts. So all we need to do is ask the Datuins to release the slaves and the slaves can go home in your transport ships. Andrew said. Yes, we can do that, and along the way also ask the 100,000 Armada to stand down while we are doing it and their ground troops to look the other way as well. Manpat kidded. Oh, their Armada will not bother you, we would be delivering them to you but not in your planet, in some uninhabited planet which we will tell you once we deliver them there. Andrew said. Okay Andrew, we will wait for your advice. Manpat said. He was almost laughing. I think I got it. Ellie said as she walked nearer to Andrew carrying the device and the device with an oblong screen. We can leave now. Bhaskar, Ellie, Skamanak, let's go. Andrew said. Andrew whispered to Ellie, I guess they think we are a group of crazy Marantais. If they knew, we would appear crazier. Ellie said. Bhaskar looked at her and nodded a smile. Andrew and Bhaskar laughed on their way back to the transport ship. Later that day at the mission room, the group were assembled again. Gantley started the meeting. The equipment the Talonauts are talking about is really a network of communication centers. And they are all centralized in the Emperor's planet. Our hackers concluded that the programming comes from the Emperor's palace and the network carries them out. So even if we get this network, the zombies will still work because they could be receiving from other centers in the network. Eric said. Gantley continued, I intend to knock the network out in one blow. I believe I would be finished planting ordnances tonight in all centers in all the planets. How many centers are there? Andrew asked. My ship counted 12,481 centers. The problem is identifying them. We followed signals among them and if a center is not looped into the signals now and say under repairs, we could miss it. Or if there are centers dedicated only to the zombies and are not in the common network and not in use now, then we miss those as well. Although we are trying our best to identify these centers. You can conclude that we will not be able to completely destroy all of the centers. Even then the disconnection may lead to a total shutdown in communications. Gantley explained. Olive reported, some of the tagged royals are moving towards the Datuin-occupied planets on board a very fast ship. Tell the Max to go in and infiltrate. I want to know who and who are all those involved. I want to trace their communications through the network. Andrew said. Now it's Tonan's turn. Okay, there are about 20,800 Datuin ships parked in planets closest to the capital planet. These are manned by Datuin warriors and these ships are twice the size of the zombie ships. We will be finished tagging the Datuins inside the ships in a few hours. How about the royals and the leadership? Andrew asked. Tonan answered, they were the first to be tagged. We even went down to the lowest rank. We tagged more than 180,000 royals, leadership, and warriors since we started. We may have to pull a Munoan trick on them. Andrew said. Sir, you mean tag the children and freeze them, in exchange for what? Linda asked. All the Datuin planets are holding millions of slave Talonauts. In order to ensure their safety we do a Munoan and tell them to release all the slaves in exchange for their children. Resban said all the slaves may not be tagged and those not tagged may not be voluntarily released to us. They may even hide them or worse kill them. Andrew explained. I would suggest you include the fathers as well, this way only the women decide. Linda said. Linda, take charge of the Munoan operation. Andrew said. Yes sir. Linda said and disappeared. That would need another day. If I remember correctly, you only got the children of the royals and leadership. But I will tag as much as I can. Do we have enough time boxes to hold them? Tonan asked. Based on our experience, we can make thousands of boxes and beam them on the ground. The boxes are not a problem. We just need to know where to put them. Ellie said. The city centers would be good. Andrew said. There are thousands of cities. If we put one per city, that would be enough. Tonan said. We would have to communicate the threat and demand to their leadership. But if we abduct their leaders, we would not have anybody to communicate the demand to. And once we get their leaders, the whole place will be in chaos. Andrew said. Gantley, do they have something like mass communication devices we can communicate our demands on? Eric asked. They have something like mass communication devices in their homes. We can tap into their communication from space and disrupt their shows. Gantley answered. Roger, what happened to the ship you were supposed to bomb? Andrew asked. I just finished that and Ellie already has the gas. Olive has the data on the explosion and the timing of the TPs. Roger said. So Olive, did the TP of the ship change our timetable? Tonin asked. It did not. You are still looking at 7 to 8 hours depending on the deployment of the ships. Now if you include the Datuin ships, it would take an hour or so longer. Olive, if we beam the Datuins out of their ships, the ships would be empty and we can just TP the ships to Manpat so he can use them. Roger said. Sounds like a good plan. Where do we put the Datuin ships? We can put them on the same planet as the zombies and their ships but maybe on the other side of the planet. Tonin said. Yes, we will do that. Olive said. Okay guys, so we continue our work and meet again tomorrow. Maybe by then we would be more prepared to execute. Andrew said. The next day Andrew woke up and told Olive to call Ellie. It's their 5th day of operation and Andrew felt no progress has been made on the zombie problem. He thought his dream may be a manifestation of his anguish. Ellie, last night I had this dream. I saw I was underwater and there is a shark. A great white shark, with a lot of shark teeth. Shark teeth are really numerous and very sharp. Ellie said and looked at him intently. Andrew continued, at first the shark felt threatening to me but suddenly there was this piece of bloody meat descending from the surface and the shark went for it and I was able to leave. You were lucky, sir. I think this is related to the zombies. What if the sharks are the octopus and I was the Talonot? In order to separate the shark from me, somebody sent down something that attracts the shark to lure him away from me. Maybe there is something the octopus likes that we can lure it away from the host. Maybe Manpat's research shows what the octopus like. And if they voluntarily leave the host will not die because no poison was secreted. The octopus know that if they leave their hosts, they will die. They will not leave if they know they are going to die. Ellie said. There are 2 octopi. What if it's the small octopus that send the poison out? Or maybe just the command to the big octopus to send the poison out? Sir, we tried that already, we removed the small octopus and the small octopus dies. In a few minutes, the bigger octopus start to die as well, then the hosts dies. But you know you may have something there. The idea is to lure the small octopus out and it leaves voluntarily and if it does, we would find out if the bigger octopus dies or not. If it does not die, we do the same process. Yes, the small octopus may be the key. It may not be too dependent on the host Talonot because it is dependent on the big octopus. So if we lure both of them at the same time, the poison order may not be given out and both leaves the host without dispensing the poison to the host. Andrew argued. So the problem really is to get something that will attract both of the creatures to leave. I will get right on it, sir. Roger beamed in, boss, I think we may also need to strafe the Datuin planets to rid them of their warship building capabilities. When my ship ran a scan, we found out that there are literally thousands of factories building ships. I would really like not to show our hands. Can we just use our drones to destroy them? Andrew asked. I think drones would be better than bombardment from space. They can fly in, decloak before the target, fire and then cloak again. Roger added. Eric and Linda beamed in. Linda exclaimed, Sir, it would not be possible to do a Munoan in this case because of the sheer number of planets and cities. We can do this in major cities but we would not be able to get the Datuins to part with all the enslaved Talonauts. Eric added, and boss, you have to differentiate the occupied planets from the Datuin planets. The occupied planets would mean transferring all the Datuins out. This means physically transporting them out. Or if we tag them, beaming them back to the Datuin planets. Andrew nodded and, yes Eric, you are correct. The approach on the occupied planets would be to transfer the Datuins out, not the slaves out. And Linda, you may be correct, the sheer number of planets and cities would make it impossible for us to get all the slaves. But we will execute this to let them know this is what we want and we mean business. Tonin beams in with Gantley. Hi guys, we were just talking about how it would be impossible to get all the slaves out of the Datuin planets. Andrew said. We can have the Talonauts send an occupying force to set up a staging area to hold the slaves they collected or where the slaves can go to. Then from there fly the slaves home. Gantley said. But there would still be the issue of the Datuins agreeing to release the slaves. Tonin said. After we do the Munoans, the slave-holding Datuins would be very much reduced. We can then use the Talonaut occupiers to threaten the Datuins with death if they do not release their slaves. Linda said. Olive reported, Andrew, the communications network are lighting up with information being transferred around. It started with this planet where the ship landed. Who are those on board? Andrew asked. It's Manpat's third brother and his bodyguards. They landed on a Datuin-occupied planet unhindered, then they walked into a building. In the building they met with Talonauts of the planet who in turn told the Datuin occupying forces. Olive said. They will probably ramp up their ships for an attack. How long do you guys think before they can start moving? Andrew asked. Tonin answered, they are pretty slow. I would say by tomorrow morning we can expect all the ships to regroup and start moving towards the Talonauts. Olive, advise Bhaskar to capture the traitors. Yes, Andrew. In our Munoans we should identify the Datuin scientists involved in the octopus technology and maybe they will agree to help us if their loved ones are frozen hostage. Linda said. Good idea, do that Linda, and coordinate with Ellie on that. You have a day. Andrew said. I also agree with Roger's assessment that we should use drone to take out all their warship building capabilities. I would add also to destroy all their mobile weapons. I saw they have something like small intraplanet ships and armor like your tanks. Olive, coordinate with all the ships to map out targets of interest and program them in for the drone operators. Gantley said. Do that also. The idea is really to cripple them but not kill them. Andrew said. Do we meet with the Emperor first to make our demands or do we just execute? Roger asked. I see no need to talk to them. What we need to do is to extract a promise from Manpat to treat the Datuins well and work for peaceful coexistence. Andrew said. I think we should have that talk with Manpat. Olive, has Bhaskar captured the traitors? Tonin asked. Yes, he has, and they are now interrogating them. Olive said. Can you advise him that we will be meeting with Manpat and ask him if he wants to come with us? Let's beam over to his ship. Andrew said. In an hour they find themselves in front of Manpat and Sarudam.